Now, you might have heard of the rumour, especially if you're a Final Fantasy fan, that's been going around the internet like a persistent Veruca for, wow, years now, that the reason why Square hadn't released a Final Fantasy VIII remaster, at least up until now, was because they lost the original source code. Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that that rumour has any kind of credibility to it. It always crops up and it's spoken about all over the place, but I've never found any reliable source that would even begin to suggest that it's true. However, thanks to a recent interview with Square Enix president Yosuke Matsuda, there's a little bit of credibility to the actual realistic nature of that rumour. Not a lot, and it certainly isn't true, as far as I can tell, but it just doesn't seem as far-fetched as it once did. And this is because Matsuda has confirmed that Square Enix, which has a huge backlog of titles, especially from the early days, from the NES days and the 80s and whatnot, that they would love to be able to release that library publicly. But there's a problem, so let's just read this interview with Matsuda, which took place with Game Informer at E3. And talking about releasing their back catalogue digitally, we're working on that in a variety of ways, Matsuda said. This is a request that we hear often. As far as our major titles go, most of those we still have variations out there that you can play now. The more classic titles that you might have played on NES, we are still working hard to make it so you can play those. I wonder what the problem is. We actually have launched a dedicated project internally to port those, so we are working to make them available on a variety of platforms. Certainly down the road, we would like to see that on a subscription or streaming service, so we're exploring the possibility of creating a dedicated channel for ourselves. Okay, sounds reasonable. Square have this huge backlog of games that they want to get into the hands of players, so why don't they? They've even got an internal project working on it. Well, the article continues, there's been one major bump in the road in getting the complete catalogue together. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but in some cases, we don't know where the code is anymore. It's very hard to find them sometimes because back in the day, you just made them and put them out there and you were done. You didn't think of how you were going to sell them down the road, and sometimes customers ask, why haven't you released that game yet? And the truth of the matter is it's because we don't know where it has gone. Well, there we have it then, guys. An interesting admission here by the president of Square that the reason why perhaps some of your favourite games from them, from the NES days, have not seen the light of day for a while is because they simply can't find them anymore. And yes, I'll be honest, that's quite an honest admission there, but it's good to know the reason why we're not seeing those. There's no, like, conspiracy to hide them from us or anything. So that's a very forthcoming answer from Matsuda there. And once again, I'm not suggesting for a moment that this is what's happened to the Final Fantasy VIII game. Obviously, he's talking here about the really ancient back catalogue of, RPGs that were put out back in the 80s. Not talking about Final Fantasy VIII, which was released in 1999. So I'm sure things were much different then in terms of keeping source code and whatnot alive. But no doubt this rumour is once again going to pop up thanks to this admission. Sometimes Square don't help themselves, but at least we're getting some honesty from them about this. But anyway, folks, does anybody, watching this actually feel affected by this? In the sense that there are games that you would like to play from that era, and now it looks like unless something happens, you're probably not going to have the chance to anytime soon. Or is it something that doesn't really affect you because at the end of the day, you probably never played anything that's been spoken of here anyway? But I know that some of you would, so it'd be interesting to hear from you guys. Alright then, folks, well, there we have it then. Pretty interesting admission from Square regarding their back catalogue. And I would be interested to know, actually, what games are actually being spoken of here, because it's not mentioned. I don't think it would be, but it would be interesting to know. Anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by, checking out the video, and I'll see you next time. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, checking out the video today. Now, perhaps you might consider becoming a YouTube channel member. Doing so not only supports me as a creator, but it also bestows upon you certain cool bonuses, such as the ability to have your name stand out in YouTube comments and live stream chat, as well as having yourself credited in every future upload that I do. If that sounds interesting, check out the join button, which you can find just below if watching on PC.